Ooh, hello everyone. How are you? Escape the Maze. I think it's part 14, part 15 now? I don't know, I'll have to see. But how you doing? I trust you're well. I don't use the word hope. Hope is a chasm of nothingness, and that was in Pandora's box, and you've got to find out why it was in there. So you can hope as much as what you want for change, but find out what hope is. So I trust you well. I trust you all very well. And that leads on really to the video today and what I wanted to discuss, and that was freedom. And what does freedom mean to you? How would you describe freedom to yourself? How would you describe freedom to other people around you? You know, and what does actually entail to be free? About 10, 11 years ago, I got put onto some books, The Ringing Cedars. The first book is Anastasia. I think there's 9 or 10 of them. I was put onto these books by Arthur and Fiona Christian. They got a website, loveforlife.au.com. Yeah, that's what it is. And they're great people, Arthur and Fiona, and they live freedom as much as what they can, you know. So you want to check out a few of their videos that might help out on YouTube or whatever. But so what is freedom? And The Ringing Cedars, what does it mean? So out of these books what I was reading, they really helped me on my journey at the time, a long time ago now. And what it was is, in one of the books, I don't know what one it was, but it stood out to me, and they come up, or she come up, Anastasia come up with this story, and it meant a lot to me, and it's kept with me all along actually. And the story goes, she describes it as, we zoom back to ancient Egypt, or what they tell us ancient Egypt was. We know history, for us lot what have done the work, we know that history is just a big lie. Everything about it isn't real. But we'll zoom back to what they say ancient Egypt. And in the story, there was 10,000 slaves, and they were all lifting rocks in a dust bowl and getting whipped by 100 guards every day. And these slaves were getting miserable, as you would do. And that just kept on going day after day, and these slaves were lifting these rocks, and up on the hill were the pharaohs and the senate, what you'd call now your kings and queens and parliament. And behind them was the priesthood, where the real power is held, right? Where the real power is held. These dark magicians and these image creators, what have kept all of our knowledge to themselves, to create the image what we see actually today. So word come to the priests up on the hill that there was going to be a revolt with the slaves. There's 10,000 of them and 100 guards, and they were going to break the guards, go through the guards, go up the hill, take the pharaohs and the senate, the parliament, or whatever you are, and behind them they were going to go for the priest, because they realised that the priest held the power and they wanted to break it. So the priests had to come up with a plan. There were 6 priests, high priests. And one of the priests said to the other priest, look, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to find out what's going on with these slaves. So he donned all his slave garments, went walking down the hill, introduced himself into the slave people, and started living their lives for a couple of days with his clothes on, and started finding out what was going on. And he actually found out that there was going to be a revolt, there was going to be an uprising. So, sneaky little thing that he was, sucked up all the information that he could, and he took it back up the hill to his brothers, the priesthood. And they come up to there was a discussion between them that they needed to come up with a plan to appease the slaves. If not, everything was going to go and they were all going to die. They were sick of lifting these rocks and getting whipped every minute of every day for it. So he said to the other priests, go away for a couple of days and come back, and we need a plan. So they all went off and contemplated on the plan that they needed to come up with to appease all the slaves. So after a couple of days, all the priests got together and they come up, and one of them come up and said, look, I've got the plan, and this plan will last for a long, long time. So the priests called the pharaohs together in the Senate, and then they called the slaves. And all the slaves all dropped the rocks and all listened, and they were all there waiting for this announcement. The pharaohs come forward like they do in the Senate, the Parliament, because the priests had told them what to say. And what they done, they come up and they said, from this day forth, all you slaves are free. You're all free. You can do whatever you want from this day forth. We're not going to whip you anymore. We're not going to make you do anything anymore. What we're going to do, we are going to give you freedom so that you don't need to lift them rocks. So you don't need to do what you need to do. So there was a party. All the slaves thought that they were going to have freedom. And the next thing that they said, I've got noise about, we'll carry on. The next thing what we said was the priests or the pharaohs were introduced was said, look, you're free, but what we're going to do, we're going to give you a coin. So if you carry on lifting these rocks, we'll give you a coin for every rock that you lift. And all the slaves thought about it, and they all thought, well, they can get stuff with these coins because the pharaoh said, look, this will get you this stuff, and that will, you'll be able to acquire this, but you're free. You do, if you want to do it, you do it. So a few slaves started lifting rocks for these coins. And what happened was is that then another slave with a few brains in his head made a barrow up so that this one could put 4 rocks in or 5 rocks in the barrow and put it down the road. And he'd give him a coin for making him the barrow. And then another slave come up and said to the bloke what was making the barrows, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll lay a road down so it's smoother for you to have your barrows going over. So they give him coins to do that. And they were putting more and more in, they were getting more and more coins. And then with this, then someone else saw that they were cutting their hands, so he set up a place where you could have bandages, so he'd fix your hands if you give him coins. And then another one realised that they needed water, so he went and got the water and they'd pay him coins to have the water. And then someone set up a food stand along the road. And then you could make your own place. You could buy your house. The more coins you had, the bigger house you could get, and you could emulate the pharaohs. You could live like the pharaohs if you wanted. So this is what they done, and they lifted more and more and more rocks, more and more and more rocks, under the illusion that they were free. But they were doing exactly the same thing, just for this invention called coin. And up on the hill, the pharaohs sighed a big sigh of relief because the uprising weren't going to happen. They were going to get found out for who they are and what they were. And the priests behind laughed. They were laughing because it was so easy just to produce this thing, this coin, and look at it. And this is what it produced. So if we look at it today, and we look at it back then, what's changed? What's changed between you getting whipped for your lifting your rocks, or you having the illusion of freedom by a coin was introduced? So this is where we've got to be careful on what we determine for ourselves what freedom is. Because freedom for us, no one can give us that freedom. We are free. We are free. But do we want to keep lifting them rocks? Do we want them pharaohs and them that senate to keep telling us what to do from the priesthood? Do we want to do that? Is that our freedom? Because true freedom is living without what they can provide. That's true freedom. So that's about not lifting rocks for them. That's about dropping the rocks and not being deceived into the illusion of freedom by what someone else can give you, what determines what your freedom is. If you're free, you're free. So can you live without that system, what they've created for you to live in, i.e. their technology, water, housing, food, electric, gas? Can you live without that? Because if you can't, then your interpretation of freedom isn't freedom. It's still a pen of slavery. So Anyone can introduce you into another pen of slavery by the illusion of freedom if you're looking outside of yourself for someone to give you freedom. So what we've got to really get into is what is freedom for each man, woman and child. And that is where we've got to come and interpret that from an outside influence to an inside influence. Can we be bought? Can we be deceived? Can a man be given freedom by another man? Can he? Who is that man to say that he can be free? So freedom for me, and I've lived freedom, and I've done it, and I know how tough it is. But that is, true freedom is being free and leaving the system behind, so that you're not reliant on the very thing that's hurting you and your family. That's about dropping the rocks and not lifting them for dead trees, because nothing's changed between that story in ancient Egypt to today. We're still begging for freedom off the pharaohs and the Senate and the dark magicians, what people call priests. We are still begging for freedom off of that. And you're never going to get it off them. That's never going to happen because of the cult and the man that they serve. Our freedom, we've got to work and we've got to be freedom. And we've got to leave the system behind. It's the only way you can have freedom, where we look after each other in community through kindness. So that is my question to you. What is freedom for you? And are you prepared to fight to be a free man without any influence of anyone else? So that's my little story. Escape the maze. Much love from me to you. And check out whether you want to keep lifting them rocks. It's down to us, people. Much love. You take it easy. Bye-bye.